The GPS DairyCAST features the high-value insights of the GPS Dairy Consulting team's trusted advisors and the owners and managers from the elite dairy farms they serve. These conversations deliver on the GPS Dairy Consulting promise to inspire change and grow leaders.
Hello and welcome to the GPS DairyCAST. I'm your host, Peggy Coffeen from the Up-Level Dairy Podcast. We are sitting down with Steve Bodart and Gabriella Houdek from AgriGrowth Solutions to learn strategies for sharing financials with your team, including what information to share, who should see it, and how financial transparency can motivate mid-level managers. GPS consultant Trent Dado leads the conversation on this episode of the GPS DairyCAST. This episode of the GPS DairyCAST is brought to you by AgriGrowth Solutions, your trusted partner for providing financial strategy and support for today's progressive dairies. Learn more at agrigrowthsolutions.com.
Welcome, Steve and Gabriella. Thank you for your nice breakout session. It was very enjoyable. So the topic was financial transparency. So to start off, would you just define financial transparency and a little bit about what your talk about was today?
Yeah, when we're talking about financial transparency in our setting today, we're talking about sharing financial information with employees, specifically looking a lot of times at mid-level managers and what we can do to help them be more successful in their own roles, help owners improve the bottom line. A lot of times mid-managers do have more control over some of the financial aspects than what you'd anticipate. They're the ones a lot of times that are working with salespeople. They're making a lot of day-to-day decisions, working with employees. So what can we do to help the dairy be more profitable?
Why is this an important topic? Do you see in the industry that there's a lack of transparency between owners and managers, or we're in a good place that just need to get better? How would you rate kind of the industry right now in transparency?
I would say in general, if we look across the dairy industry, I would say owners understand their financials fairly well. Not all owners, but
that's why they hire you guys, right?
But I think it is, as the size, scope, and scale of the dairies has continued to grow, it is necessary that we bring that to the next level, because it's not the owner that is in direct contact with all the employees. Mm-hmm. And so with the middle managers, as Gabriella said, the amount of information they control, the amount of influence they have on the business is huge. And a lot of times those mid-managers see the opportunities before the owner is even going to know an opportunity exists.
Mm-hmm. So you'd say that dairies are mediocre at transferring that information right now?
I would say they're mediocre. And to be honest, when you look at one of the big struggles on labor on dairies, it is keeping mid-managers in a position and keeping them motivated to help move the farm forward.
Yeah. So to be transparent with your financials, obviously you have to have good financials to start with. How do you find owners preparing or creating the information that might even be available to mid-managers? Do most of them prepare them yourselves, use outside resources like yourself, or how do they generate these financials to start with?
Yeah, so if we're looking at our book of clients, we work with most of our clients on a monthly or a quarterly basis. Our clients have a variety of ways they probably choose to share that information. I would say the majority of them would use the reports that we're putting together, Steve. Some of them choose to have those managers sit in on the whole quarterly meeting. They see all of the financials. They're very open with what they're sharing. Others may choose to pick a couple of metrics and share them with them after the meeting or have them join for part of the meeting. But I think that's an important piece of this whole financial transparency to make clear is it's up to the farm's level of comfort to what extent you want to share. We're not asking you to open up absolutely everything. Share your balance sheet, share your net worth with everybody right off the bat. There are some producers that are very comfortable doing that and it works for them. Mm-hmm. But if you want to dip your toes in the water first, there are some metrics that you can pull out first so that you don't have to step all the way. And usually a line-by-line income statement is shared if we're choosing to share financials at that point.
Why do you start there? What's special about the line-by-line income statement? Why would you share that with the middle managers?
Yeah, great question. Line-by-line income statement has a lot of those categories that mid-managers have influence over, right? Whether it be animal health or breeding or their influence over cull-cow decisions, all of those different things. If you look at the line-by-line income statement, you can see exactly where we are, where we're trending. We can look at where we're going, what the goals are, and what changes might need to be made, or which ones we're maybe overachieving on, or which ones we could be doing better at.
Yeah, because I would take it the showing the numbers probably just a starting point, right? Let's say you show them an animal health number, right? It's probably the coaching that goes around with it in terms of the goal that's around it or the direction. So
where's the industry? Where have we been in the past? Which way are we going? Has it increased, decreased, held steady through the year? And that's on a per cow basis is how we would look at that. Or what is really happening? And are there influencers? And if there's influencers that are causing it to go up or down, how do we capitalize or how do we change that factor in order to help improve everybody's bottom line?
Yeah, can we use an example? We'll use the animal health category. Let's say you guys prepare a number, the animal health category looks high, so the owner goes to the mid-level manager and says animal health is high. What do you guys recommend be the coaching or the actions after that?
Yeah.
Again, using kind of the example of animal health is too high.
So I can go into an example even directly about animal health. So animal health category, we break out into hoof care, and we break it out into more of medicine, vaccine, veterinarian is kind of one part of it, hoof care is another. So a lot of times if we see animal health change its trend, especially if that trend changes to go upwards, we're going to open it up, take a look at maybe which per cow number is increasing over where we budgeted or where we had been. An example that I can tell you about is if we did find one in hoof care under the foot bath, and ended up being that the foot bath was being mixed incorrectly, right? So they were using more product than what was necessary.
Extra concentration, that's good for the hooves.
So that is an example I have. Steve, you have any in that category, another to share?
I think just getting into why. The hoof care is a great example. Let's get into treatment versus prevention and what's happening on dairies. And I go back to last year and part of the area that I worked with, we had the bird flu go through. Part of that, and just the influence that had in helping everybody understand that, okay, there was financial loss because of the bird flu, there was milk production loss, there was additional expenses that occurred, but bird flu came to an end. It is not okay to continue to have the vet cost at this level. We need to, again, go back to where our costs were pre-bird flu.
Find the new normal.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thanks for walking through that one for me. Obviously, part of the risk of transparency, right, is that the middle manager might not truly understand the number, might misinterpret it. How do you walk through, let's say a dairy is reluctant to be transparent with their numbers. How do you guys walk through the main benefits of being transparent with their mid-managers, the ones particularly that are really cautious and concerned about sharing their numbers?
So I would say that if I go back in time here, we've been trying to incorporate mid-managers on our meetings probably 6 to 8 years. And I have advised some of the newcomers to this as to talk to other producers that have actually involved their mid-managers, and how has that helped elevate the overall management on the farm and what we are getting through to the mid-managers, their success, their values, their feeling, they're involved. They really feel as part of a partner in the dairy, even though they might not be an owner, they feel a partner instead of an employee.
Yeah, because they get to see the
Exactly.
the most important numbers of the dairy, right? What's actually
Yeah, I think one thing we see with those mid-managers that sit at the table for meetings is when it comes to a new whether it be a new technology or new technique, new way of doing things, they already are thinking in their brain, kind of they know where we're sitting at from whatever cost perspective currently, and then they can walk through the concept of, okay, if I do this, it's going to cost this, and the return might be this. They already have that understanding of where they're sitting today and how this could potentially change the bottom line of the operation if they want to implement the change or the new technology.
Yeah.
I think the other thing with that is this is not all for the owner. And what do I mean by that? In a lot of them, we have set together some type of incentive programs that are based on the overall profitability of the farm and then sharing that with this team of mid-managers. So it is, yes, you're helping the farm do better, but you're also helping yourself.
Your income is
Exactly.
reliant on this too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are you navigating today's dairy economy and feeling stuck in the numbers? AgriGrowth Solutions is here to help. AGS is a team of independent financial consultants who work for your best interest, guiding you through budgeting, financial planning, and performance tracking so you can make confident business decisions for your farm. From annual budgets to expansion planning and KPI scorecards, AGS helps dairy producers build clarity and long-term financial success. Learn more and get in touch at agrigrowthsolutions.com.
So to me, it's really logical, right, to share some of those income statement items because the middle manager influences that category. So obviously another important financial statement is the balance sheet. Do you guys have clients that would share balance sheets with middle managers, or do you see people draw the line around the balance sheet?
There are a few, but very few, that share the balance sheet. And I believe, I understand that. Is it necessary for that employee to understand where all of my net worth is at? Because that can cause a potential jealousy issue. So I don't think it is necessary. Now, you have the right employee, the right timing. There might be one or two that actually do find that or that you do share that with at some point in time. But the other thing that has been very clear is written information, especially the balance sheet, is not going out the door with the mid-managers. That is staying in this meeting, and there are consequences if this is misinterpreted out in general public.
Yeah. And I think that's logical too, right? Because even if the purpose of the transparency is creating action and improvement on the dairy, right, the balance sheet's probably a more tailing or lagging metric anyway, and probably not impactful on the day-to-day.
That becomes more impactful when you get to the big picture questions of expansions and what are we able to leverage and everything. And a lot of times the mid-managers aren't part of that discussion.
We've talked a lot about actions and improvement. The other thing that I think it is very key on with these mid-managers is what is the success? These changes, once you have implemented them, what does it mean to the bottom line? And sharing that back with them so it's not like, okay, now the owner is, I've done this, now he wants more. He wants more. He doesn't. What did I really do? Did this really change the bottom line? Sharing that so they understand the success of the improvements that we did make.
Yeah, and I can see it too, like with the clients I work with. We'll use repro, for example. Like, obviously there's a lot of pride in good repro numbers, but I think it's really logical that once you understand, I moved my preg rate from 28 to 35. Now, what did that do to all the other financial metrics that might benefit from improved reproductive performance?
Or did we move it because we started putting more cows on DNB?
Yeah.
There can be some tricks there that can be played, so we got to make sure we're understanding the whole picture.
So obviously we're in a state of the dairy industry where lots of dairies are growing, expanding, trying to find what's new. Do you find that the transparency helps middle managers be more creative or more involved in kind of the growing, changing aspect of the dairy? And what does that kind of look like on some of your guys' clients?
Like I said earlier, I think it empowers them to have the understanding of where we're sitting today and what changes, including expansions. That's a big part of it. And with expansions come decisions upon, once again, new technologies, new ways of doing things, and how a certain decision to do it a certain way or build a facility a certain way is going to impact the numbers that those mid-managers have an effect on a daily basis.
One of the things that comes to my mind all the time when you talk about this is labor efficiency. And is all too often, if the mid-manager doesn't understand the financials, it's pretty easy to say, well, we need to add another body to help make everything get done. And we forget about how do we look at things. Is there a way we can reorganize work to make sure that everybody is busy their entire work period versus we've got this peak here that we need more bodies for, but then we have this slower time still within that 8 or 12-hour shift that we really don't need all those people. And it's hard to pay somebody half time if they're on the farm. I haven't seen that work at all. So just reorganizing work and keying in with the mid-managers. This is where our labor cost already is. We really can't add this. So you're not saying no, we're saying let's get creative and how do we get this accomplished, not make anybody's life more difficult, but then achieve our goal of keeping our labor costs in line or improving them.
Yeah. So let's say dairy agrees and they're ready to start being transparent with a few metrics for their middle managers. What would be the metrics that you think that dairy should start with in terms of sharing to their middle managers?
I think that's definitely going to be farm dependent and dependent upon which people you're selecting, right? So what their roles are and what costs they have the most control over. So the couple that we talked about in our breakout today, we already outlined animal health, breeding, bedding, feed, supplies, repairs. What am I forgetting, Steve?
I would say those would be the main direct ones that really these mid-managers have some influence over.
That'd be aligned with herd manager, feed center manager, maybe an ops manager or something like that. Those
and you might focus on one or the
jobs.
other depending on which of those roles that you just mentioned they have a control over. So we've been talking a lot about the expense side, but one of the sides that mid-managers also has control over, some influence over, is the revenue side.
Probably a more exciting one for them, I would imagine.
Exactly.
Exactly, is to maximize that revenue side as well, right? So that's looking at calves and looking at lessening DOAs. If you're in a position to do so, maximizing the value of your calves that you're selling. It's also maximizing the value of that cull cow, right? So a lot of these are falling. We also talk about milk quality. So somebody who's managing people that are in the parlor. So we're looking at, depending upon who's in the conversation and what people that they work with as a mid-manager is probably going to define which exact metrics that you select. But like for a herdsman, yes, probably animal health, probably breeding. You're probably going to be looking at cull cow values, calf values, all of those different items.
Do you find like total milk revenue to be important and understanding how they get paid? Is that impactful, or is it too noisy with the fluctuations of milk price to really use that as a metric with managers?
So there is value there, but at the same time as there's value, there can be a lot of detractors there that get you off center just due to the milk price variability that can occur from month to month or year to year. So I do think it's important that we share it. It's important to show trends on what are occurring, but we can't put all the emphasis on just that milk revenue coming in.
But if you wanted to pull in from your perspective, right, the managers have probably more control over one part of the milk revenue equation, which would be the pounds of milk sold, not the actual price. If you want to pull that into it, we could pull in looking at cost of production. And within cost of production, right, if we have more pounds to divide over, we're going to dilute out some of those expenses. So that number being shared with mid-managers could help have an understanding of the value of increasing energy-corrected milk production. And then within that, understanding which of the categories within the cost of production formula they have the most influence over, whether it be labor, whether it be in feed, or whether it be a lot of them for them is going to fall in that other production cost category, which would have that animal health, breeding, bedding, a lot of those areas that they have a direct impact over. So that would combine in the production aspect with the maximizing expenses, minimizing expenses and maximizing revenue from those other income sources without having to look at milk price.
To me, like the transparency side all makes sense. Probably the second part I would see is kind of that financial literacy. And I think we talked a little bit about it, but let's say we're ready to share the numbers, you're sharing different cost breakdowns. How do you best prepare? How would you recommend middle managers, and sometimes maybe even dairy owners, become better experts in financial literacy? How do they know and understand their numbers better? You guys recommend different workshops to attend? Is it just through conversations around the numbers? How do you recommend improving financial literacy on both levels of the dairy?
Yeah, so I guess the most direct one we work with is helping clients as we put their reports together. So I think improving financial literacy is diving in is just a part of it, and being
Like just getting in and
yeah.
understanding how they work, how
Yeah.
they're calculated.
Understanding industry best practices for financials. Understanding accrual adjustments is a really big one for people that are just getting started, right? So that we're looking at it on an accrual basis and not a cash basis. A lot of these numbers, luckily, that we just talked about are fairly month to month equal anyways. There's not going to be a lot of accrual adjustments within the ones we just talked about. But as you're taking the step to the next level and actually looking at the full bottom line within that cost of production formula, within the bottom line of the income statement, if you're going to take it that far as opposed to just like a cost per cow or revenue per calf, all of that different information, you're going to need to be on an accrual basis.
And in addition to that, just overall, I think it is important that we give our middle managers a clear understanding of what are the components that make up, I don't care if it's animal health, breeding, feed, whatever it is, and that it is consistent from month to month how things are entered, so that they understand, what does breeding mean? Does that mean your breeding drugs are in there? Does that mean genomics are in there? What does that really mean? Does that mean the heifers are in there? And so we have to be clear with them as to what we're putting in there and be consistent on what we're putting in there. And I think that's really where the understanding comes from. Now, we can go to classes and all that. I think, though, every farm is a little bit different in how they do things. The important thing is the standardization, though, within that farm, so that January and November are done exactly the same. And that's how I think learning can really occur, especially on the mid-managers.
Well, as we wrap up, is there anything from your presentation or anything that you want to make sure that the audience takes home? Anything that we missed here today?
As I look forward and look at our dairies as they continue to change from one generation to the next, financial literacy, understanding the business, sharing it with your mid-managers is one of the key things to success. I've been doing this for way too long, but we look year over year. I look over the past 25 plus years that we've been doing benchmarks. Production has, between the high and the low, has continued to shrink, the differential. Profitability per cow has continued to widen year to year. And the only way to get us on the high end of that is continuing to improve everybody's literacy, so we're all working on the same page.
Yeah, so that's probably important for the middle management in particular, that it's not all about just production and performance results.
Exactly.
It's about, the cost expense, all those financial metrics that you're
Exactly.
walking through. Yeah, changes their game a little bit.
And as we continue to see dairies grow, I think we'll continue to see the need to teach those mid-level managers about financial literacy. And for some dairies, it might be starting to involve the next generation in the financials too.
Exactly.
Where the next generation doesn't quite know what's going on. Maybe the parents do and Gen 1 does, but as we're starting to bring the next generation into the operation, we're bringing them into the operational perspectives of it, but are we also starting to take steps into understanding the financials of the dairy?
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you both, Steve and Gabriella, and awesome presentation.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Trent.
You just heard from Steve Bodart and Gabriella Houdek from AgriGrowth Solutions, as well as Trent Dado from the GPS Dairy Consulting team here on the GPS DairyCAST. I'm your host, Peggy Coffeen from the Uplevel Dairy Podcast, and we look forward to you joining us again.
The GPS DairyCAST features conversations that deliver on the GPS Dairy Consulting promise to inspire change and grow leaders. If this GPS DairyCAST has you looking for more ways to become an elite dairy producer, find more information in our show notes on how you can add a GPS advisor to your team.
AgriGrowth Solutions is a team of financial consultants with strong dairy backgrounds that work for the best interests of dairy producers like you to plan your continued and future success. Partial budgeting and asset management modeling, along with key performance indicator scorecards, are the future of dairy financial tracking and management. AGS leads the industry in these services by working independently for dairy producers and providing leadership experience and solutions. Learn how to add AGS professionals to your team and get in touch at agrigrowthsolutions.com.